I'm not your gossip girl, I'm the headline. Truth with a curve, baby, redefine. Welcome to the thirst trap. All the truth looks good in a tight wrap. We talk love, power, so let's in. Turn the world on, let the light in. Yeah, the thirst trap news. You'll drink it up, it's the real you. They betray the thirst bro news, where every headline's a revelation.
That clicks. Stryer, James, Wolf Wizard. Ooh, I like that name. Wolf Wizard. Welcome to Thirst Trap News, folks. Today's episode's gonna be just a little bit different. They say they can't hear me. Oh. Yeah, so did you hear anything I said before? Let me know if you can hear me now. Okay, cool. So today we are going to go over one video for the whole show. But don't fret, it's still going to be fun. Let's look and see who's here. All right, John. Man, there's a lot of people here. I can't believe there's a lot of people on this late at night. Oh my gosh. Sorry I am late, you guys. But I know, yeah, it's 8 o'clock on the West Coast. I'm just surprised because we don't always have this many people on this late. All right, so this video is going to be fun. Darling patriots, gather round. It's time for your daily dose of brains, beauty, and Luna's sixth sense for the truth. The video I'm going to have for you guys that I've got pulled up ready to play, it's the one and only Tucker Carlson, don't switch it, who's going to pull back the velvet curtain on the Israel first meltdown that's happening in our government right now. And if anybody knows me well, they know I'm a staunch America first person. Staunch. Like, if it's not for us, I don't want it. But he's going to talk about the future of the America First movement, and I'm riding shotgun for this one, and for the most part, I agree with this ride. And I wanted you guys to watch it with me, because I haven't really totally been sold on Tucker until this video. I'm pretty sold on Tucker. There's things about him that I don't like. Like, as with anybody, I'm not going to agree with. You know what I'm saying? But he's very much America first. So if he's America first, then he is my ally. So we're going to cackle at a bit of absurdity. We're going to raise an eyebrow at the sneaky power plays they talk about and discussing this, and you never know, I might drop some witchy truth in there, since you know I can't help myself with my forbidden behavior being oh so witchy. Let's see. All right, before I grab my wand, or before you grab your remotes, we're gonna look at the chat before I flicker into the shadows of foreign policy, loyalty, and see who's really holding the strings. So let's look. Oh, look. Justin says I look amazing tonight. Well, thank you. A little bit of hair gel and laying your edges does a girl wonders. Chico, Jason, the one-legged Viking, welcome. Catalino, hi. Wolf Wizard, thanks for the wolf emoji. Hi, Rowdy Rooster, thanks for the audio check. All right. Just a final reminder before we get into this video to stay awake, stand firm, grow mighty. We're gonna have some thirsty patriotic talk. Are you ready? Let's get on with it. Let's listen to the knowledge Tucker's about to drop on us.
And open your phone and think to yourself, I wonder if this roiling fight on the right is still ongoing. The fight over who's a Nazi and who's Nazi adjacent and who should be platformed and who should be deplatformed. That fight, the one that has mesmerized ex-users across the world. What is that fight actually about, and how long will it continue? Well, the first thing to know about it is that it didn't.
Welcome, Phobos and Chimpo Schmoozy. How you guys doing? We are listening to Tucker break down what is going on with the America First movement and how it's basically melting down into Israel first.
Start 3 weeks ago with Nick Fuentes' appearance on a podcast. No, this has been a fight taking place mostly behind the scenes since January. And that tells you a lot about what it's actually about. So here's how it began. Donald Trump inaugurated January 22nd of this year. Almost immediately after, he is visited at the White House by the first head of state to come to Washington, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu. And the visit is not simply a congratulatory visit. They're not actually allies in any sense. Remember that Benjamin Netanyahu was one of the very first to congratulate Joe Biden after the 2020 election. So there's probably not a lot of warmth there, just guessing. No, there was a purpose to the visit and the subsequent visits by the Prime Minister of Israel to Washington, and that was to get American support for a regime change war in Iran to overthrow and replace the government of Iran, which the
Tucker can be a tad much at times, but he's all for Americans. Yeah, Rowdy Rooster said, yeah. But he really feels so strongly about that. So like I was saying, if that means he's my ally, you know.
The nation of Israel sees as its primary regional threat. Iran has all kinds of very dangerous conventional weapons. The United States spends a lot protecting Israel from those missiles. And Israel is also concerned that at some point, Iran will either make or buy a nuclear weapon, leaving Israel no longer the only nuclear-armed nation in the region. So that's what it's actually about. And to be honest, you can see from Israel's point of view, if you're trying to identify long-term serious threats to you, Iran would be at or near the top of the list, especially since Israel has taken out almost all the other threats. So it's just Iran. The question is it in America's interest to participate in that war? And make no mistake, Israel wouldn't last 3 days in a war by itself against Iran. In fact, probably not even 24 hours.
Nope.
Israel's population centers would be taken out by Iran's conventional weapons. And at that point, the Israeli government could either nuke Iran, starting a chain reaction that, you can't really predict once it begins, or allow hundreds of thousands of its own citizens, certainly tens of thousands, to be killed. So Israel could not do it alone, and no honest person suggests or would suggest that it could. It needs the United States. So the question from the American perspective is it good for America to get involved in yet another Israel-inspired regime change war in the Middle East? There have been quite a few.
Hell no. Hell no. Because I feel like what they do is they go around creating little terrorist groups so they can come to the U.S. and be like, hi, can we have more money? Because look at this. Oh, we have another terrorist group. See them right here. We need more money to fight them. That's what I think is going on. Let's see. Luis, Double 89, Shade, Steeler, Carl, Tad Talks, welcome. Captain America for life. Hi, buddy. Lawrence 601. Hey. How are all of you guys doing tonight? I hope you're doing well. All right, let's continue. Welcome, Rolex Le Mans. Hope you're doing well tonight. Let's get on with the video.
Notably Iraq. Is that a good idea? And so that debate began, and it mostly began behind the scenes. It didn't sort of peek out into public view very often, but when it did, the people who wanted the regime change war against Iran, with almost zero exceptions, almost never admitted what they actually wanted, and they certainly never acknowledged what the debate was actually about. It was about one nation's interest versus another nation's interest. Do those interests convene? Are they the same thing? Or
Welcome, Jack. It's good to see you here in the chat. Marion, what's up, beautiful? How you doing, Marion? I'm good. Let's see. Matertid. I don't know how to say your username. Israel is usually provoked to defend itself. You think so? I think that Israel has funded a lot of the terrorist groups that they claim to be, it's like kind of when the U.S. went over to, like after 9/11, that kind of thing. Like I think that countries attack themselves as excuses to go to war at times. And I think Israel does that. For sure. Matt. Okay. I like it. It's much easier. Hi, Daniel. Good to see you. Matrix. Welcome back. Okay. And here we go, folks.
are they at odds with each other? I can see why it'd be a good idea for Israel to want this. Is it a good idea for us? That's the debate that never took place. And it didn't take place because almost from the beginning, the people who wanted regime change war with Iran made the debate instead about, why do you hate the Jews? You're a Nazi. And of course, that was never what the debate was about, because Israel, the nation of Israel, the one with the parliament, the Knesset, and the military, the IDF, and lots of people and tech firms, and is not, by the way, exclusively Jewish. And it isn't actually the same as all Jews in the world at all. And in fact, there are a lot of Jews around the world who have mixed feelings about Israel, or certainly don't want a regime change war in Iran. But the people who do want that in the United States, Israel's proxies in the United States, its defenders, its professional defenders in the U.S., immediately made the debate about the Jews.
Right.
It wasn't the anti-Semites who did that.
Have you ever noticed that? You can't say any truth about the Israeli politics or the Israeli government or the Israeli commerce system without being called an anti-Semite. And the fact is that ever since World War II, this has literally been what's been crammed down our throats, is protect the Jews, protect the Jews, protect the Jews. And they have systematically taken over literally everything. Yes, double 89. I think that that's definitely the cherry on top with Charlie Kirk. And actually, I did a whole episode yesterday on my subscriber only episodes on Sunday nights where I covered that. And then next Sunday, I'm going to be covering more of that for my subscriber only topic. So, and Shay says, what do you mean? Love it. I didn't, you know what? I'm so blessed that I have such a smart audience, and they get to, they're so smart that I get plausible deniability. Wonderful shit. Wonderful shit. Yes, Devil 89, you need to subscribe. Go to my main profile grid and you'll see the kind of content that you will get. I also do that show in lingerie. Yes, sir.
Actually, it was the defenders of Israel in the United States, not all of whom are Jewish, to be clear. They're the ones who made the debate from the first day, why do you hate the Jews? And so for those who were hesitant to get into another regime change war, it's intimidating because you're happy to have a debate any time of day about what's in the interest of the United States, when should we project military force, what can we learn from the last 25 years, et cetera, and you'd probably win that debate because there's no evidence that any regime change war we've engaged in the past couple of generations has helped us. Zero evidence. And everyone kind of knows that, including the President of the United States. But if you make it a debate about why do you hate the Jews, then most people are going to opt out because they don't want to deal with it.
Oh,
Most
look,
of them don't hate
folks. We got a bit of fun coming in. We got a bit of fun. We got a little troll. So much of a troll. His username is just Guy, inmate number 22378. Is here calling me a cunt. Oh no. He's called me a word. Oh, my heart. Whatever shall I do? How shall I pick up the pieces? This is fun.
Jews, you hope. No evidence that they do. But nobody wants to be tarred as a bigot. And so
Hey,
very
Brian.
few people
Glad
pushed
to have you
back.
here.
Very few. In fact, as far as I know, only 2 people, me and Charlie Kirk, actually went and spoke directly to the president to make the case that no, you shouldn't get involved in this war because its aim is not actually to deny Iran a nuclear.
Okay, so. Oh, no. So, look at right there. He said that him and Charlie Kirk made a personal trip to basically warn Trump like that we shouldn't be getting involved in, this war. Well, if some of you on the show tonight are my subscribers, and I showed you one of the Candace Owens videos. Well, I think 2 shows ago was not a subscriber only show. I covered Candace's memo she put out about the hit that's put on her and Tucker, and it was her, Tucker, Charlie, the CEO of the new CFO, the olive looking guy for Turning Point USA. I can never remember his name, but he told Candace 3 days after Charlie got shot that it was supposed to be her. And she didn't take that comment seriously because she thought it was just him in the bargaining stage of grief. And it wasn't until, now all these weeks later, and her investigation has been proving to be on point, that now it's totally come out and confirmed that her hit has already been paid for and orchestrated. So when Tucker was saying this in the show, that was like one of those Easter eggs that you can corroborate like all of their separate stories together with. So it's just an interesting thing that he went and told Trump, like, hey, no, don't do this.
Weapon, that may be a virtuous goal, but that's not really what this is about. What this is about is luring the United States into yet another regime change war, and if you do that, it's bad for everybody, including you. That's the case that we made. Charlie went to the White House to make that case, and God bless him for doing that. And he was hated for doing that. But he did it. Very few other people did. In fact, as far as I know, none. So, of course, in June,
Hey,
the
Mike.
debate ended, and the United States did commit
And
military
Kona, huh?
force to Iran. It bombed Iran and spent billions to protect Israel once again from the inevitable, the predictable conventional response from Iran, et cetera, et cetera. And in the end, thank God, we did not get lured into a regime change war. But the bitterness lingered, and the total unwillingness of the people pushing for that war to state their aims, to be honest about what they wanted, and to defend what they wanted, remained. They understood from the very first day that they could not win that debate. They didn't want that debate. They wanted another debate where they felt they could win, or at least cow their opponents into total silence. And that debate was about, quote, the Jews, anti-Semitism. And again, this is a country that hasn't had a lot of anti-Semitism. Decent
Right.
people are not anti-Semitic. Christians understand that anti-Semitic behavior or thoughts, attitudes are unchristian because Christians are universalist in their thinking. Every person has the capacity to come to God through Jesus. Every person, no matter how they were born.
Right.
And so, of course, no
Which,
sincere
mind
Christian would be an
you,
anti-Semite, and no sincere Christian would ever.
let's say there's a Buddhist. Do you know you can be Buddhist and Christian at the same time? Like being a Christian doesn't necessarily mean you have to denounce like your traditions, your origin stories, it means you have to, in order to gain the kingdom of God, Jesus' divinity as a divine creature showed us what behavior we need to model. So to be Christian means to be Christ-like. That means to behave like Christ, to be like Christ, to exhibit love in all decisions. And that doesn't necessarily mean turning the other cheek. Love can be violent. Love can be soft. Love can be protective, and it can be risky. But I think the point is that you don't have to, you can be a Buddhist and also recognize the divinity of Jesus Christ, because just because you're a Buddhist doesn't mean your sins have been atoned for. There's still that end. So what if you want to receive the salvation of Christ? Well, you can still do that, through Christ. So, and he won't turn you away because you can't let go of certain concepts that might be, foreign to Western society. It's God talks to everyone in the ways that they understand, and it's nobody's place for us to judge. You know what I mean? Jack says, I hope the Persians can free themselves from Islam, but we shouldn't be involved. Yeah. John says, I don't trust that Erica Kirk. I don't either. Dave says, hello, you rock. Hey, Dave, you rock. Yes. TF89 says Charlie's wife worn some interesting rings that day. I saw that. Yeah, I saw that she had some Mason rings on, actually. And yeah, that would be awesome. I'm actually working on a lineup for people to be interviewed. So, you never know. But look, did y'all notice I changed my set colors to green and red? But nobody noticed. Oh, I bet you Jesus did all that too. I agree.
Defend anti-Semitism. In fact, he would call it out as he would racism or any form of discrimination on the basis of blood. He would call it out immediately. So this was never about anti-Semitism, despite the fact there, of course, are anti-Semites and all kinds of other people in this country. There are 350 million of them. But this debate was not about the Jews or anti-Semitism. It was about when to use military force and to what extent should you follow the lead of a much smaller nation as you think about your own nation. And for a lot of people, this was enormously frustrating since Donald Trump was elected for the second time last November on a platform that explicitly promised, and this is why he was elected, to help the United States, which is in tough shape and getting worse. And everybody knows that. And all of a sudden, this foreign prime minister shows up and starts hijacking the attention and the money of our country to his ends. And that could be any prime minister, by the way. It happens to have been Benjamin Netanyahu. But conceptually, that's outrageous. And people were justly upset about it. Absolutely, they were upset about it. So where will this go? Well, of course, the people who think the
Matrix, yes, you're absolutely right. We were just talking about that the other day, me and some friends, about how many are actually Semitic and how many are not. So, yeah, looks like you're very well read. Good, go you.
U.S. government should act always and everywhere on behalf of its own citizens, the America First people.
Shades.
Those people are going to win the
Thanks,
debate.
honey.
In fact, there's never actually been a real debate. But when people's mind fog clears and they can think about what just happened, they'll understand that this was never about the Jews or anti-Semitism, much less Hitler, who's been dead for 80 years as of April. No, it was about, should the United States act in its own interests, or should it subvert its own interests on behalf of a foreign power with a very effective lobby in Washington? That's exactly what the debate is. And the answer is, of course, no.
Put it in there.
So the America First people, or the people who just think the government should serve its own citizens, which, let me remind you, is the only legitimate rationale for representative government. In other words, if the government is not representing its own citizens, if it doesn't care about its own citizens, it's not only off track, it's illegitimate. It has no basis to govern because it's a representative democracy. So you are morally bound, you're legally bound to represent your own people. That's the only purpose of having a government in our country.
What he just said right
if you're not doing
here.
that, you're not legitimate.
Yes. Let me back that up.
So they will win. And in a year or two, we're going to look back.
I wish I had the rewind thing on here.
Our own people. That's the only purpose of having a government in our country.
Go.
Act in its own interests, or should it subvert its own interests on behalf of a foreign power with a very effective lobby in Washington? That's exactly what the debate is. And the answer is, of course, no. So the America First people, or the people who just think the government should serve its own citizens, which, let me remind you, is the only legitimate rationale for representative government. In other words, if the government is not representing its own citizens, if it doesn't care about its own citizens, it's not only off track, it's illegitimate.
So what does that tell you about ours? Does anybody here feel like our government is representing us? Because although a lot of great things have happened with Trump, he's been focused on the rest of the world. It's been nine months. Enough. Okay? Let's focus at home now. The things we elected you to do are to undo the Biden policies that are causing our economy to, causing our wallets to hurt. You have not addressed that yet. It's going to take time, but there's so many issues. If we're sending money to Argentina, then I best find out that our homeless problem has been solved. If we're sending money to Israel, I hope our drug crisis has been solved. No. So let's focus on home. That is my point. Because if we do not focus on the interests of the people, our government is not legitimate. And our government has not been focusing on the interests of us. It's been doing, since World War II, it's been doing Israel's interests. Literally since then. It's provable.
It has no basis to govern because it's a representative democracy. So you are morally bound, you're legally bound to represent your own people. That's the only purpose of having a government in our country, is to represent our people. And if you're not doing that, you're not legitimate. So they will win. And in a year or two, we're going to look back on what we've been watching for the last month or last 8 months, and we're going to realize this is exactly like BLM or Me Too. You know, at the core, there may have been a point, but basically it's buffoonery. It is an effort to divert your attention from the real crisis. And we're going to wonder, wait a second, since when did the institutional right, conservatives, people who run the think tanks and the dumb little magazines nobody reads.
Devil and Kona, what I'm referring to, and my commentary is going to be as it pertains to the topic in the video with Israel. So when I'm saying stop focusing on them, enough is enough, we need to focus on funding the things we need to focus on here. There's still a long way to go when it comes to the economy. It's getting better. But that's why he just had to sign some executive orders, because last week we made a huge stink about it, that it wasn't happening quick enough. So last week he had to sign some executive orders to end some of the tariff stuff and lower some costs some other places when it comes to the food. So there is still some things he still needs to sign by executive order to undo that Biden has done.
And the people of Bloviat on Fox News. Since when did those people become completely committed to identity politics and censorship? Because they are committed to identity politics. That's what this is. It's identity politics. Of course. It's group.
The thing is Europe's never going to enforce those laws. The UN's never going to do that. because war is the only way banks truly stay funded. Banks stay in business because of war. You have to do the history on the banking families and whatnot, but they'll never stop it because the wars keep the banks funded.
Group over nation, of course. It's another country above our country, a tiny country, an irrelevant country over our country. And people are going to look at that and say, wait a second, we thought, in fact, we voted for you because we thought that the two things we could be assured you believed were you were against identity politics. You lectured us about woke for like 10 years. You're against woke because you're against identity politics. You're against tribalism. And here you are not only embracing it, but using it as a cudgel to hit people in the face. And maybe even more shocking, we knew for a fact you were against censorship. I mean, isn't that the whole point of the Trump election? We're against censorship. You can't censor people in a free society. You can't have censorship in a democracy. How will you have the information required to vote? Censorship is totally incompatible with democratic government, period. And it's also, by the way, illegal under the First Amendment to the Bill of Rights. And Republicans just won an election on that platform. And all of a sudden we learn there's really nobody in the world more excited about censorship than a neocon podcaster or a National Review staffer. They just love it.
What is he talking about?
People aren't going to forget that.
Neocons are the new wave of conservatives that are like highly, highly America first. If he's referring to the Stacey Plaskett situation, I'm sorry, but there has to be consequences for colluding with a witness during an investigation surrounding treason, surrounding Comey, surrounding Trump, surrounding Epstein. Like, censorship is the mildest discipline, I think. Like, when you're in a position of authority, yeah, I think censorship is appropriate for when you're colluding. What the fuck? Okay, I don't agree with Tucker totally with what he's saying right there, because I do believe in consequences, but like I don't believe in like free-for-alls. Like, you need some level of, you need some level of, I don't know. Y'all know what I'm trying to say. You got a sister shit. What do you mean I got a sister shit? Yes, the banks, they fund on both sides. Definitely.
And in a year or 2 or 5 years or whatever, we're going to look back as we do on COVID and the BLM riots and the Me Too movement. And we're going to ask ourselves, how did we fall for another moral panic, another social media-driven moral panic? How did everyone go insane all at once, denouncing each other and denouncing old friends and beclowning themselves because they're caught up in this moment and they can't see that they're betraying the very principles they claimed like 6 months ago they would give their lives for. And those people are going to feel shame, and many of us will feel contempt for them. More than
yeah, that's why Israel is doing.
So that's going to happen. They can't win this.
That's why Israel is doing that, little campaign, taking a tour around the U.S., around big churches, trying to make sure, they have that support. But to be Christian, for real, why am I going to support a group of people whose book, the Talmud and the Torah, justifies murdering? They murdered my Savior. They double-crossed and betrayed Jesus Christ based on the teachings of the Torah and the Talmud. Because in the Talmud, it says that anyone who goes against the teachings, just like Islamists, they say is worthy of death, and that it is expected upon a Jew to take the life of a goyim who tries to preach against Judaism. So, in my eyes, Mine eyes hath been awakened. The people, the human beings themselves, I don't have an issue with. Now, as I talk to each person, I may have an issue with an individual because if they actually believe the teachings in that Talmud, which I find to be one of the most highly offensive, most racist books I've ever read in my entire life, then maybe I might not have the same empathetic views towards that person. But, you know, I'm not going to be like just like wicked. It's not the ethnic group that I have an issue with. It is the political Zionist movement and, you know, the Orthodox Jewish teachings. That's it. I don't know. I'm a Christian. So in order for me to be Christian, I can't be accepting of the Jewish religion as an obligation because your people murdered my king. It's like common sense to me. My Chinese neighbor lived there for 4 years. After I started doing this podcast, all of a sudden they got 4 Israel flags in their yard and a big yellow sign that says Jesus saves. And I'm like looking at it like, are you fucking kidding me? But like those people that you have a flag in your yard killed your savior who you have in your window. I think you need to read a book.
Debate. It's not actually a debate. It's them name calling. So that's going to happen. Rest assured. But in the meantime, the rest of us have to listen to an awful
TF
lot
Devil.
of a
Appreciate
man who
the
a year ago
subscribe.
was unknown to most Americans. Kind of a
Hey,
third
Justin,
tier
welcome.
podcaster, TV host, or radio host, or whatever. A guy who was a weekend show on a cable channel. A guy called Mark Levin. And for the last month, we've been watching Mark Levin say things that no one in my lifetime has ever said from the right. Like this. Watch.
I don't know where there's Jew hatred from the Marxists, the Islamists, the neo-Nazis,
Oh, I can't stand Mark Levine.
the
Oh my
grifters.
gosh.
I don't know where they're pulling us and pushing us.
Neo-Nazis.
What do they want to do with American Jews?
We want to get you out of our businesses and out of our entertainment and out of our politics is what we want to do. Okay, Mark Levine, if you want a direct answer, I'll go on record. Luna Lopez, former congressional candidate for Florida District 5, endorsed by Roger Stone, the GOAT, says that what we want with American Jews is for you to stop putting your dirty pedophilic fingers in our educational system, our healthcare system, our entertainment, our economies. That is what we motherfucking want, Mark Levine.
They want to do? Where are they taking this country? They're destroying it.
No, they're not. We're protecting it because the names that you have on this slide, Carlson, Owens, Kelly, Bannon, they are America first, hardcore. You are not. If they are your enemy, I know everything I need to know about you, Mark Levine.
Carlson, Owens, Kelly, Bannon, it is a time for choosing. You pick the good guys.
Well, Jack, if that's what neocon means, that would make sense because that's what I always thought. But then I heard something different the other day, so I'm not even sure, but I believe you.
Or the bad guys. You pit America or you pit the Third Reich. They're not
This is
MAGA.
This is like what they taught the blacks to do. It's the same formula. What they parrot the Jews and the blacks. Oh, the fear mongering from this race. Like all he's doing is if you don't blindly support Israel, he's saying you're a Nazi. You're anti-Semitic. Which is the same thing as Michelle Obama did by going, oh, we're so pressured by white women to straighten our hair because we have to fit into white women's standards. White women are so racist. This is the same bullshit. Same type of bullshit.
Not conservative. In fact, they're more Marxist, Islamist, America-hating, Jew-hating thugs than anything else. And let me educate
Justin,
them
you're
briefly.
right.
The Babylonians couldn't kill the Jews?
The funny thing about Fuentes is they don't even want to bring up his name because Fuentes is probably the most like anti-government, like of all of them. He's very much just sick of the corruption. I feel it,
The Persians couldn't kill the Jews? The Romans couldn't kill the Jews? Hitler couldn't kill the Jews, and by this I mean eliminate them. You think you're puny little asses are going to be able to do it?
Kill the Jews? Your
Who
first thought
wants
is,
to kill
wait
the
a second,
Jews?
how do we get to that? No.
Right.
Just don't want a regime change war against Russia.
Hey,
By the way,
Danny.
a war in which Jews would die, presumably, both in the U.S. military and the IDF. Like, no, don't want to kill anybody. Actually, that's kind of the point. You want to kill the Jews? So the first thing you notice is like the total inversion
Right.
of what the argument actually is. It's an
Okay,
argument
yeah, it
about
makes sense.
to what extent should U.S. military power be used on behalf of another country, not the United States? That's it. That's the debate. And all of a sudden it becomes the Babylonians, the Nazis trying to kill the Jews. So, again, it's an inversion. He's accusing his opponents of really what he wants, as always.
Well, this Christmas, give the gift
Isn't that
of sleep
funny?
with
Hold on, I
Eat
gotta pause
Sleep.
this. We
Everybody
can't- Isn't that funny how like I think he's onto something there where he's saying like what they're accusing you of being is what they actually want you to be. So that's a fair point. So it's really about not giving them what they want. You know what I mean? Not giving them the satisfaction. Because if you end up giving them what they want, then you've played right into their hands and now you're just their puppet. What's the deal with MTG? I think MTG, it's a combination of things. I think she sees the level of corruption that criminals run our governments around the world, and they're part of one elite super ring of criminals. And I think she sees that there's no way that that's ever going to stop. And I mean, if you've been paying attention to the Bible, it isn't going to end. Trump is just the blip in the middle that gives us a bit of peace before the war. That period of time where they said right before Armageddon, they'll be crying out peace and security in the Middle East. Trump's part of that prophecy if he actually pulls this off. So I think since she's such a biblical woman, she's paid attention to what the Bible says, and I think she's getting that slap of reality in real time of seeing Satan's hand inside of government and knowing that it's only going to get worse until the bitter end. And I also think that she didn't like the fact that she's, is going to be primaried by Trump. I'm sure that's a good ego hit. Probably didn't make her want to face having to duke that out for herself. I think she should have stayed in it because that would have brought a whole other level of respect. But at the other flip side of it, if it isn't calling you anymore, then get the hell out of there, because it's got to be a calling. It's a brutal arena that I have firsthand experience with. So if it's not a calling, you need to get out of the way. She could also be positioning herself to run for president because, she can do that on her own. But she can't be in office because she would need the party support to do it. So, I don't know. We'll just have to sit and kind of wait on that one. You know what I mean? Okay. Let's look at the chat and see what we got going on in the chat. And are these the Jewish people from the Bible? Well, I think the Bible kind of it's just this. What do you mean? You're talking about I don't understand the context of the question. What do you mean? Are these the Jewish people from the Bible? Let's see. They're not going to let her run for governor. Well, hopefully, let's see if she does. you know? All right. That's what they were trying to tell her not to do, was to, you know. Oh, man. The Candace thing? Oh, gosh. Yeah. And it's really cool to watch her, like, wake up to the truth of everything, seeing it in real time. You know, some of us have already been down that road. So watching her trying to solve Charlie Kirk's death has led her to being able to give the evidence of the cabal that we've all known is real and only had circumstantial evidence. Charlie's death, I think, is going to be the catalyst to really exposing the cabal and bringing, you know, the triggers for Armageddon, honestly, because I think Armageddon's going to be manifested from right here, from our minds. When we as a group consciousness are ready for it, it's coming. Zach said, "You are so beautiful." Thank you, Zach. That's really sweet. I tell you what, my ponytail is so tight right now, though. Ooh. Bridget has a penis. Bridget has a penis. Bridget has a penis. Brigitte Macron. I'm surprised that they thought they'd be able to keep that a secret forever. The truth, like, always comes out. You know what I'm saying? What the hell? This fly keeps wanting to fly in my face. And Macron wants to hide it forever. Because I guess it's part of the whole MK Ultra issue, because in the lawsuit for Candace, that's what they brought to Candace, that we thought was going to be about Macron having a wee-wee, really was more so about the fact that Candace was letting the cat out the bag for reals about the MK Ultra stuff. And, you know, there's a pedophile wing to the MK Ultra stuff, and apparently that's what Brigitte Macron is allegedly a part of. Yeah, it is funny. It is funny. MK Ultra is like literally what happened to Britney, what happened to Courtney Love, what happened to her husband Kurt Cobain, what happened to Chester Bennington, what happened to all of the ones who defied the program, the MK Ultra program. They get rid of them. And Charlie Kirk they were trying to start running the program on Charlie. And they've tried it on Candace, and the ones that they're usually have to be very powerful first for them to even see you as an asset to want to even make you an agent for it. So yeah, Candace even discovered through all of this Charlie Kirk thing how the Kardashians are basically Mossad agents. It's so deep. You guys really need to watch her live streams on Charlie's death. I mean, you will see exactly why they're trying to make us believe she's crazy, because she isn't. She's brilliant. She's brilliant. The mean old bitch is brilliant as fuck, turns out. All right. Justin says, "I've got some stories." I bet you do, honey. We're here for it. Tell us about it. All right.
You're members of the Third Reich. You're Nazis. You're evil. You're an Islamist. You hate Jews. You're an anti-Semite. You hate America. Okay. That's ad hominem. There's no even attempt.
Justin, on my subscriber show, we actually get really into that yesterday, the Britney thing. Talking about the Candace and the Charlie Kirk death. And one of my subscribers is tied to that situation with Britney too. So you should check out, you should subscribe and check out the show from yesterday.
To address the argument that anyone Mark Levin doesn't agree with is making, instead of just attacking them as people. And the third thing you notice
that's
is
all
what
they can
animates
do.
this, which is hate. Mark Levin is filled with hate, obviously. And hate is one of those words that is thrown around a lot as a weapon. You're filled with hate. That's hate. It's hate speech. Therefore, you can't say it, etc. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean, just because the word itself is used cynically, that the term doesn't describe anything or that hate isn't real. Hate is absolutely real. Hate is absolutely real. And if you listen to enough Mark Levin, you yourself can become hateful.
Well, first of all,
reacting against.
There's nothing wrong with the emotion of hate. You should hate what is bad. You should not hate what is good. God hates what is bad. You are made in the image of God, and you're going to experience all the same feelings God will experience. So love produces hatred. Love produces all kinds of feelings because it is the law of duality that exists. If love exists, hatred exists. And you cannot have one without the other. Otherwise, you can't define one without the other. So it's not that like you should never be hateful. It's just that what do you hate and where do you direct the results of that hate? You know. Hey, Mike, how you doing, dear? Glad to see you.
Against it can turn you into what he claims you are. And that's just a fact of human nature. You stick your face right up against this. After a while, you will become hateful. All of us, even people who are committed to not being the way. It happened to me last week, a week ago tonight. I'm sitting on stage with Megyn Kelly at an event she was doing in New York. And I think Dick Cheney had died that day. And I knew Dick Cheney, obviously, and he had died. And I disagree with Dick Cheney, but I'm not going to criticize a man on the day he dies. I'm just not going to do that because I have reverence for death. But I had a lot of emotion on the topic. And so I said a few nice words about Dick Cheney. He was a great flycaster or whatever. And then I started thinking.
Hi, Mary. Thank you. And Mike said he just got home from work. Mary, guess what? You'll be so proud of me. But I am quitting vaping. This is my last one. And it's at the end. It's been flashing empty for 2 days. It's got just fumes left in it. So y'all gotta root me through this. Because I really don't want to. I just am because I should. So there's that. Hate should be temporary, otherwise you will be miserable. I think it's like I hate what is bad, but it doesn't like own me. You know what I mean? It gives me like the foundation I need to know how I want to behave. Yeah, I've been vaping for 5 years. And yeah, I just feel like it's time for me to stop. Hopefully I can.
Thinking about his daughter, Liz Cheney, whom I also know and have disliked intensely for quite some time because she slandered me and because I think she is a violence espouser, and I disagree with that, and I have contempt for it. But rather than say that, I just attacked in a vicious way Liz Cheney. And I said something awful about Liz Cheney, actually. Didn't explain why I was mad at Liz Cheney. I just slandered Liz Cheney, basically. And I said that her father would be ashamed of her, and if I had a daughter like that, I'd probably kill myself, which is an awful thing to say. It's kind of hard to believe I said that. But in my mind, I was thinking of all the people I dislike, Liz Cheney would probably be at the top of the list. And so therefore, because I dislike her personally, because I know her personally, and because I so disagree with everything about her political views, I'm the opposite of Liz Cheney. If you were to graph it out, I'd be on one side, Liz Cheney on the other. Because we disagree so profoundly, I told myself, clearly I must have told myself, that you could say anything you want about Liz Cheney. She's not really human. You can say anything you want.
That's a mistake.
Really
a lot of us. So this is the trap of hatred, right?
Myself. Who thinks like that? Who talks like that? Well, I did.
To lose the humanizing element to how we view people. And that's a slippery, dangerous slope, to not see them as human anymore.
And so I just want to say I'm sorry to Liz Cheney, and I mean that, too. I mean that. I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry I said that. I will not stop disagreeing with Liz Cheney until. So
there's these, Justin, there's these, like, wooden sticks that it's just air powered, but it's got like menthol or tobacco essential flavored oil in it. So you just suck on that, but there's no nicotine and there's no vapor. It's just kind of like the motion of doing it. So I'm probably going to get one of those.
Well, she changes her views. I hope that she does. But there is never an excuse to talk about people like that. And that kind of is the trap here. Mark Levin is almost 70 years old. No one's going to eat the dog food here, okay? That is not a message anyone's going to buy. So the fear is not that Mark Levin...
Right. You can hate what a person is doing and not hate the person. You can love the person and hate their behavior. It's very, important to get to a place in life as we get older to understand that sometimes loving someone too means keeping distance between the two of you, Hey, Timberwolf, welcome, dear. E. Torres, welcome. Kolunga, hi.
will take over American politics.
Thank you.
That's not going to happen. The fear is that we become Mark Levin. By staring at Mark Levin too much, we become him. Another way of putting it is the fight is not against Mark Levin and the many Mark Levins out there.
Right.
The screamers, the slanderers, the impugners of character, the liars. The real fight is within ourselves. The real fight is against our own nature, our own natural inclination to, in the face of Mark Levin, become Mark Levin.
Right.
And the cost is to us.
Right. And isn't that like a trap we all fall into? It's like you see the hostility in front of you. So when flight, or freeze, the nature part engages. What are you going to do? Are you the freezer, the runaway, or the fighter? I'm the person that's going to reflect whatever you're showing me. I'm going to give right back to you. So if you're getting loud and wild, well, I'm probably going to get loud and wild because, that's why I need Jesus. But, or maybe you're the type that's going to run away when you actually need to be there and fight. Or, instead of someone like me where I have to realize most of the time I need to just stay and be cool and calm. But because loving my enemy in that moment could be reaching out to them with with respect in a moment where they're very emotionally unregulated. And then what ends up doing is it wins them over through humility. Even if nobody says I'm sorry, they'll still remember your actions, You
hurt yourself. Don't become evil. Because what's the point? Mm-hmm. What is the point? And the only way to prevent yourself from becoming that person is by admitting that you've acted like that person and apologizing for it sincerely, not in a fake way. Oh, I'm sorry if you didn't like it. No, I'm sorry because that's wrong. And
because
it's exactly
I hurt
what
you.
I don't like about someone else.
Which I'm sorry has to be done only when you mean it, or it becomes a meaningless phrase out of you if you're just running around being a stack of sorries for no reason.
And I don't like it about myself when I do it. And I'm going to try not to do it again. And of course I will do it. Probably by the end of the show, I'll do it again because I'm prone to that because I get mad. But we need to say every single time we do that, no, I'm sorry I did that. And I'll try my best not to do it again. So really just to keep in mind as things heat up, don't become the people you despise or else what's the point? We wind up, the Second World War is that story. We're fighting for freedom, but we're arming Joseph Stalin to do it. Really, we sent more money and airplanes and tanks and jeeps and boots and food to Joseph Stalin, the greatest mass murderer in history, in order to bring what? Freedom to the world? It's not a defense of Hitler, of course, but that's shameful. The Roosevelt administration did that.
Justin, the fact that they go after those people means that they want you. Their message is too powerful and they don't want you listening to it. So when I discover that, it's like, okay, well, what's the message and why do they want me to not know it? Let me decide for myself if I should know it. It's kind of funny what the Bible teaches in the very beginning of Genesis. A lot of this is smoke and mirrors. Who is really the good guy and who is really the bad guy? Do Satan pose, quote unquote, Satan pose that question to Eve, like, why does he not want you to eat from the tree of knowledge? Is it because he doesn't want you to realize that you also can know for yourself what is right and wrong. So it kind of makes me think of that. It's like, if they don't want me looking over there, well, then I want to look over there. What is it that you don't want me to know? And then let me decide for myself if it's right or wrong.
With the full support of his party.
It's
Like,
too
don't
culty when
become
they
the
don't
thing that
want
you
you
hate.
doing your own
That's it.
research.
And if you don't do that, if you allow yourself to get carried away, so mad that you start mimicking the hate that's coming at you, what happens? Well, of course, it flowers into violence. Like, that's inevitable. We're very close to that now. And
Which, let me point out that the Jews worship Yahweh, their progenitor. Our Lord is Christ, who said not to worship him. That worship belongs only to the divine, the Father of all life, the intelligence that is woven into every molecule that exists. God is within the heart of every man. That voice, that super ego, that parental voice, the little angel and the little demon on your shoulders, that's the voice of God. Both sides, the good and the bad. You know, there's the law of duality. If God exists, so does the devil. The two forces of good and light will always coexist. They have to, or you cannot define one without the other. That's why there's a difference between the divine, the all, the everything. That's God. Then you have lesser gods like Yahweh, Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad. There's the Taoists, the Shintoists. Like, there's a lot of layers to all of this. So when the serpent was posing that question to Eve, that was in regards to what Yahweh was saying. Just want to put that out there. If God is within the heart of every man, then so is the devil. The devil is also within your heart. And it really is more about your divine purpose, your contract you agreed to before you inherited and inhabited this meat suit, this body, this scuba suit that allows you to exist in this 3D plane. So, you know, that's why it's important to just align with love and light, because no matter what you do, as long as it's done in that higher virtue, you can't go wrong when it comes to the safety of your soul. And it's only between you and God. Only you and God know if you're good.
in fact, we're there in some ways. It's happened. We're still talking about a political assassination, a friend's political assassination on September 10th. Charlie Kirk was murdered because of this. So it can happen.
Justin, the Jews have a word for it too. Yeah, it's called a goy. A goyim. And Mike, yes, talking frequency and vibration. Oh yeah. Make sure you guys subscribe, because I get into really, really deep topics like that on the subscriber shows.
And it will happen unless all of us prevent ourselves from becoming that. And by the way, you can't control other people. All you can do is control your own behavior. So if you act like that, apologize for it. I'm going to really try and do that.
I think the serpent in the Bible was a Draco.
But we are absolutely moving toward violence, and it should be really clear. That's the other thing, is you don't want to espouse violence, because where does it go? It always begets more violence 100% of the time. September 11th led to millions of deaths in the Middle East. Yeah. October 7th led to Gaza. Like this, all once the violence begins, you can't predict its course, but you can be fairly certain it will accelerate. And when that happens, all calculations change and people change. And the feud becomes irresolvable and more people die. And that could happen in our country. So the only way to stop it is by controlling your own behavior so you yourself don't become evil. So Mark Levin is already there. And we know that because Mark Levin has repeatedly, and he's not the only one, but he's the most blunt, has repeatedly called for just murdering civilians, children in Gaza, because they're Amalek or whatever. They're stained by blood guilt. Prime Minister of Israel said exactly the same thing.
Yep, and it's true because of what the
guilty.
Talmud teaches. This is expected of them.
by virtue of how they were born. So that, by definition, includes women and children. So Mark Levin is not clever enough to keep the implications of these views to himself, and he said them repeatedly on television, just to give you a sense about how Mark Levin feels about human life and the human soul. Watch this.
And I'm supposed to, what? Shed crocodile tears for what's going to happen to these people?
Ugh.
I'm not. Maybe I'm the only one who will voice it, but I'm not. Israel has every right to throw every damn thing it has at barbarians. And if there are innocent people, quote unquote, civilians who are killed, then maybe they ought to organize to take out the government they elected. Tapper and the others are saying there's 2 million Palestinians in Gaza. They're not all terrorists. They don't all believe in Hamas. They really have no choice. Let me ask you a question. Is that how we treated the German people when we were fighting the Third Reich? Well, they're not all Nazis. I mean,
What?
you got to fight to win and survive. You can't sit there and figure all that stuff out. Oh, but don't hurt the civilians.
He's like, you weren't supposed to care about killing German civilians. You were just supposed to kill all of them because they were German. He's a piece of shit. Like, he's a fucking piece of shit.
Look, we have to defend ourselves. The Israelis have to defend ourselves. The free world has to defend itself. And if there's collateral damage, well, that's too bad.
25 years
See?
ago in this country, people didn't talk that way.
Nope.
They didn't. It was a different landscape, different expectations. The idea of blood guilt, because that's what he's describing there. You should be killed by virtue of who your parents are.
But it's okay for Jews to say that people should be killed, and it's okay for blacks to say racist shit against whites.
Who your grandparents were, by virtue of how you were born. You should be killed. You don't have a right to live. You're guilty because you were born, and which, of course, leads to collective punishment and genocide. That's the basis of genocide right there, that attitude.
Right there.
That was considered totally un-Christian and
It's so
un-American
crazy
because it
to
is.
me
And if someone said something,
how the Jews get so up in arms about the genocide of their people, but yet they believe in it themselves. And it's a big secret. Like, you're not allowed to read the Talmud if you're not Jewish, because you'll discover that they believe this. They believe in eugenics. They believe in very deep racist beliefs. Like, they're okay with this, but not to them. And then the more you read the Talmud, you start to realize why they've been kicked out of 109 countries. It's a sad truth.
like that on television, I mean, he'd be probably pulled off the air for that. You should kill kids because you don't like their parents? That is their attitude. That's the Israeli government's attitude. Well-documented attitude. We're paying for that. And you could say, well, you know, you don't have to hate Israel, but that behavior is not better than Hamas at all.
Exactly. Justin, you are exactly catching on, because the point is if they believed in what they were doing, they would have done it that way. And they know that the Hamas attack was a bunch of bullshit. I don't believe it was Hamas that did it. I believe they obviously continued it because they were being accused of something, but I think Israel did it to themselves. That's just my opinion. I'm not saying that as fact.
Kind of the same, right? Killed civilians. They came in and killed people at a music festival. Bibi, turns out, let them in. We found out today in the Knesset. But whatever you think of what happened on October 7th, you know, Israeli civilians were killed. That's terrible. We're against that. We have to be against that, and we're no better than the people we're fighting, of course. What is the difference between us and them? We're in different groups? That's not a meaningful difference. The difference is we're committed to a set of Western principles, and those principles begin with we reject blood guilt. And because we do, we reject collective punishment and genocide. A lot of us thought that was a consensus after World War II. That was the lesson of the Nazi regime. Should have been the lesson of the Soviet regime, which, of course, practiced collective punishment and committed genocide against Christians. Most people don't even know that. It did more efficiently than the Nazis did. But all of it is terrible. All of it is awful. And a lot of us thought that was the main lesson that we were supposed to take away from the war. And by the way, that's a great lesson. That's an excellent lesson. We should take that lesson from the Second World War. And then you wake up and there's Mark Levin, and not just Mark Levin, but our policymakers, our members of Congress. Most of whom are not Jewish, by the way. This like infected everybody. That's okay. It's not okay. It'll never be okay. It's a shame. It's shameful behavior. It's a stain on this country. You can't fight people unless you think you're morally superior to them. You shouldn't be. And how can you say you're morally superior if you're operating from the same assumption, which is that everyone on the other side should be killed because of how they were born? But that is absolutely Mark Levin's assumption. And he said it out loud. Look at this Twitter exchange. Watch this. She's basically saying, I don't understand like why we're getting involved in all this stuff. And Mark Levin is saying,
Okay, so you have MGT right here saying, I don't know why anyone in America who's been the victim of a crime or killed by Iran, but I know many people who've been victims of crimes committed by criminal illegal aliens or murdered by a cartel. And then Mark Levin says, how incredibly dumb is MTG? She doesn't know anyone in America who has been a victim of a crime or killed by Iran. You mean the thousands of Americans, and especially military personnel, killed and maimed by the Iranian? And then someone below it says, people like you only make anti-Semitism increase. And then Mark Levin says, it's in your family's DNA. Like you can't form your own opinions because if your grandfather was a racist, then you are by default. This is the bullshit. People like Mark Levin. Mark Levin is producing people like me, people like Nick Fuentes, people like Candace and Tucker. He's creating people like us because of the shit he says.
well, you're a Nazi. And someone writes in and says, Mark, I'm not even, I may be on your side or not, but what you're saying is actually creating anti-Semitism. And he's saying, and I'm quoting, anti-Semitism is, quote, in your family's DNA. Who thinks that?
Right.
Who would say something like that?
Streaming November 16th on Paramount Plus
A
is the return
whole
of
ass racist. All right, let's skip over the ad.
You are not in your DNA. We don't believe in a chosen people, and we don't believe in a damned people. Period. We don't believe that in the West. We don't believe that some peoples are inherently better or worse than other peoples. We believe in individuals in the capacity of every person to make individual choices and change for the better or the worse. And on that basis, they are judged, but not on how they were born. And if we don't believe that, if we think that some people are just like inherently bad because of their DNA, as Mark has said, and a lot of other people like Mark have said, then what's the point of what's the point of all of this? At that point, it's just like, well, my group has more guns than your group and we're in charge. That attitude gets people killed and it rots your soul. That's why we say anti-Semitism is bad in the first place, isn't it? You can't judge a whole group of people by how they were born, by their genetics, by their DNA. But there's Mark Levin doing it. So it shouldn't surprise you that, of course, if you have those attitudes and you think there are Americans, and he clearly does, whose DNA makes them less than human, unsalvageable, inherently evil, well, it shouldn't surprise you that he'd be calling for violence against them, and he is.
And then they'll vilify you for doing the idea they planted into your head in the first place.
And this isn't like your kind of classic, like, oh, everyone's out to kill me, I'm so important. I despise that.
Hey,
But
Kojak,
it's a
how are
fact,
you, dear?
And we know that from what he says. So here's Mark Levin about 2 weeks. In fact, I think
Thank
exactly
you.
2
That's
weeks
really
after
sweet
Charlie Kirk
of you.
was assassinated, and he was trying to explain how this happened. How did Charlie get killed? Here's what he said.
The call to violence. That's what it is. You're calling people Hitler. It's a mass murder. You're treating ICE like it's the Gestapo or the SS. Then you're free to shoot them.
There you go. You call people Hitler, they get killed, right? You torque up the rhetoric to, we've all decided Hitler is the worst. Okay, great. Hitler's bad, for sure. So once you call people that, you liken them to the person we collectively agree is the worst person ever, person we collectively agree if you had a chance to kill baby Hitler, you would. Then why wouldn't you kill the people who are Hitler in your own society? Well, you probably would, and you'd feel justified in doing it. And that was the point he was making. Yeah, fair point. You know, you hope it's not used to censor people. You're allowed to have ugly thoughts. By the way, they're constitutionally protected. But you should be discouraged from it, for sure.
Uh-oh, Jack. I hate the dentist. I'm terrified of the dentist. If production is listening, can I get them to come to the desk?
As Mark Levin just said, they lead to violence. Calling people Hitler leads to violence. Wow. Well, since that's his description in his terms, consider this clip about a month later.
I would ask some of these people who say, look, I'm going to stand by Tucker. You know, he's just inquisitive. He likes to have these people on and ask them questions. Really? But I'm not going to plat for them, no. So Tucker is a racist. Is that okay? First of all, how many of you have friends who are racists? Isn't that a fair question, Mr. Producer? How many of you have friends who are racists and are proud of it and talk about it on a national platform? This is what I get now. Will you debate him? Will you debate Tucker Carlson? I don't debate the Klan. I don't debate Nazis.
I don't debate Nazis. He texted me that.
Pure Talk customers are proud of their wireless company. Think about that. You
We
never hear
cannot
anyone-
air that. Let's skip through that. Golly, then he had an ad come up quick. My God. Okay.
Bias that treat people as members of groups rather than individuals all emanate from the same idea, which is you're born a certain way and you can't be fixed. You have blood guilt. And that's why it's bad to call people Nazis. And here is Mark Levin calling people Nazis. Well, in this case, me. So what is that?
He is a
Well, it's
POS,
supposed to balance,
man.
and it's not just me. We compiled a list.
Look at this. Look at to how many people he just goes down every day. August 29th, September 3rd. And it just keeps going. It's just like he just sits on his phone and just looks for people to call Nazis.
Of all of some of the people on Twitter, Mark Levin has referred to, these are all recent, Nazi, Nazi, Nazi bastard, F off, Nazi, 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 Nazi. But finally, somebody writes in on Twitter and says, and we're quoting, this is Mark Levin's 12th post today that's related to Israel or its critics. I know he's Jewish and sympathy for Israel is understandable, but this now borders on obsession, to which Mark Levin responds, Nazi! Nazi! You should pause before you call people names like that. And I should just say, because righteousness
Defund
is a
Mark
goal,
Levin.
self-righteousness is a sin.
Unsubscribe.
I don't want to be self-righteous. I've certainly called people things they didn't deserve. I've leveled ad hominem attacks on people. I did against Liz Cheney. I apologize for it. I meant
It's like all of the...
But we shouldn't let ourselves go in this area. We should force ourselves to treat other people like human beings with sincere disagreement.
It's like after Charlie Kirk's death, all of the Zionists got downloaded a program to go max. That's what's wrong with Mark Levin right now. They're seeing everyone catching on to what Israel's been doing via Charlie Kirk's death. Has like totally brought more eyeballs to the situation, and they're like glitching out and just texting everyone they can that they're Nazis. It's like how they flag to each other who to like jump on and blacklist and threaten.
Agreements or insincere disagreements, but still agreements that we can debate. Because once you start calling people Nazis, we really have no choice but to start shooting
Thank you,
them.
John.
To be Dietrich Bonhoeffer.
And also
sort of
welcome back to the
reach
chat,
end
John.
of reason or even Christianity. Bonhoeffer
Or
decided
my live stream.
Christianity's not even, he was a Lutheran pastor. Christianity's not enough. We have to kill the guy. I'm not judging Bonhoeffer, who was a great man in some ways, but that's inevitable once we decide that people are Nazis. So you kind of have to wonder why they're doing this. And of course, it's because when you call someone a Nazi, and maybe in Mark Levin's case, he believes it, you immediately freeze them in the headlights of your slur. Nazi. You deter
All right,
people
Jack, see ya.
from arguing with you because no one wants to be called a Nazi. But you also, for the bystanders who aren't even directly part of the debate, you draw their attention away from what the debate is actually about. In other words, for every moment that
Yeah, Danny.
we're arguing about who is and who is not a Nazi, answer really nobody. The Nazis have been gone for 80 years. Sorry.
Exactly. Finally,
But for
someone
every
said
moment when
it.
we're having that debate,
Because
we're not.
how the hell is anyone a Nazi? You can't. You have to be part of like that political party to be one.
debating the things we ought to be debating. In this case, should we use military force on behalf of a small country, a totally irrelevant country? That's a fair debate. We're not having that debate. We're screaming about who is a Nazi, who's not a Nazi. So I guess the thing that we can learn from Mark Levin in this case is if you have a position, argue that position. Levin doesn't want to argue his position. It's very hard to defend, so he won't defend it. He'll just attack. But the rest of us who have a sincere position about America's relationship with Israel,
Right.
and the damage it has done to the Trump coalition, which we're watching it be destroyed, very unfortunately, those people should argue what they believe and not get caught in this trap of identity politics. Who's a Nazi who has a right to speak? Buzz off. No. AIPAC is a foreign lobby. It should register as one. Our country should come first in the thinking of every person who represents our country. Those are the debates that we ought to be having. So the next lesson that we should learn from this contretemps is that you can't allow other people to define your priorities. You are an adult. You are an American. You have the right to decide what matters to you.
How many times have y'all heard me go off on my podcast about the fact that you have free agency, you have free will, you have your own mind, you are free to use it. You can unleash your critical thinking potential at max power whenever you so choose. The cult of society has conditioned us to not do that because if we question the narrative, O ye of little faith, you become ostracized and shunned in said cult. And there are many types of cults. There's religious, political, and secular cults. They all use the same formula to force you to remain part of the fold and keep your critical thinking at bay. What's up, Keith? Welcome. John says the word Nazi comes from Adolf's party at the time. Right. They were socialists, therefore Tucker can't be a Nazi. Exactly. Yes, we would love to get rid of lobbying. Okay, all right, let's keep going.
If you're having trouble paying your health insurance, or if you think divorce laws are unfair in this country, or if you think chemtrails are a problem, if you don't like fluoride in the water, if you think there should be a cap on credit card interest, whatever the issue that matters to you, first and foremost, you have a right to feel that way. No one should be allowed to talk you into adopting their enemies as your own. There are a ton of people in Washington who think the single most dangerous person in the world, most evil person who's ever lived is Vladimir Putin. Some of them really think that. A lot of them are just getting rich by saying it, but a lot of them
The
do
thing
believe
I
it.
hate
'Cause I know
about
them,
the
I know them.
term conspiracy theorist is the fact that no one who is caught during a crime, after a crime, or conspiring to commit a crime ever tells you, I mean, it's rare that they ever admit what their plans were, how they were going to do it, and why. So it always is a theory based on the evidence on what they conspired. Every crime starts out as a conspiracy. You have to conspire to pull something off. And detectives and police are conspiracy theorists every day. I have to come up with a theory on how the criminal conspired to get this done, because people rarely just confess. So they pretty much force the jury, the judge, and executioner to be a theory conspiracy theorist. So I hate that term.
They feel that way. It's sincere. But as a percentage of the country, what percentage of the country actually puts killing Putin at the top of its priority list? Like
Red MAGA gang, thank you.
A problem for most Americans. Who runs Russia? But it's a huge problem in Washington. So Washington, for a couple of years there, succeeded in convincing the rest of us to either adopt their priority, Putin is the most important thing, we have to stop Putin, or shut up about it, because if you don't, you're an agent of Putin. Basically bullied the country into accepting their list of priorities. And the election of Trump was really a refutation.
Here's how I feel about the Venezuela thing. It's kind of hard for me to remain totally objective, I'll be honest, because my mom is from Trinidad, which is 7 miles off the coast of Venezuela. So you could like spit on my mom's country from Venezuela. So much crime has come up from that country that Trinidad has had to bring back its hanging law. They'll hang you in the motherfucking streets if you come up into Trinidad with that bullshit from Venezuela. I have some clients from Venezuela who are so sick of his oppression that they are welcoming what Trump is doing. So I'm just kind of sitting watching. I know the realities of like what Venezuela is involved with. So I can't say that I'm like not kind of excited to see someone dethrone him, because it's an illegitimate presidency, and the person who actually won the election 25 years ago would be who is soliciting other governments for help taking down this guy who stole the presidency, and then they would basically start back up at 20, the person who, if they're still alive. That's how it was just explained on the video I saw recently, which kind of made sense to me. But you know, Maduro is a wicked, wicked man. So, you know, viva la Trinidad. Trinidad, as the Hispanics say. Although we aren't Hispanic, it's cool to have them as neighbors.
Of that, it was tens of millions of voters saying, no, actually, our problems need a hearing. Someone needs to care about our problems. It's not just about you and your little parochial squabble. They're telling us now that Iran is the biggest problem we've ever had.
Well, you have to understand, it might not be classified as a war because it's already illegitimate. There's a lot of factors to what makes what Trump's doing legal or not. And what the Democrats are doing is just throwing out a narrative that, oh, we need Congress to approve this. They actually don't. What Trump is doing is completely legal because their economy that's fueled by the drug cartel is like literally causing hundreds of thousands of Americans to die. So there are like other avenues that other countries can go through that are affected by an illegitimate regime. So Trump's never going to do something that's not within his power, because he is not about to give the Democrats any sort of upper hand to say they were right. And in fact, what he does a lot of times is he gives them ammo and does things in a certain way to make it look like he's gonna do something he shouldn't be doing, and then he nails them to nails their coffins, like what he did with the Epstein thing. He even got a lot of us conservatives pissed off because he said when he campaigned that the first thing he was gonna do when he got into office was release the Epstein files. And then, you know, he's like, oh, it's a hoax. And we were like, what the fuck are you talking about now? And he got everyone riled up, and he knew it was a risk getting his voters riled up because of this delay. But it was really kind of brilliant what he did. He needed the Democrats to be the ones to make the demand on the Epstein list because of how many of them are implicated in this. Epstein was not friends with Republicans. He was friends with Democrats, and Trump knew this because he was the informant for the FBI. So what he did was, in order to get the Democrats to start demanding the release of the Epstein files, see, look, he's not doing one of his promises. He had to pretend that he thought it was fake. If he were to release the Epstein files on day one, like he said, it would give the Democrats the door to be like, oh, these are altered before they released. We don't know that any of this is real. And they would have every excuse in the book to make it look like Trump was up to something. So what he did was he pretended he thought it wasn't real, gassed them up, made them get loud and start screaming to demand it, even had his Republican colleagues demanding it to make it look legit. Then he lets the Dems shut the government down, lets them help elect a socialist Mondami, and then says, sure, I'll release the files. Because now all these Democrats that are getting in trouble based on these files, they can't, guess what? Trump's going to say, you wanted this. You wanted this. You can't say anything about these being fake because you wanted this. I'm just doing what you asked. This is what's in them. It's brilliant. It is absolutely 5D chess. This is like fucking Las Vegas poker, man. That's what I keep saying. This is like the upper echelon of like the poker face. Like he knows human nature. He's the GOAT. This is why he's able to make deals. And I want him to be friendly. And I want Mondami to like him. I want Putin to like him. I want all of our enemies to get along with Trump because that means it's more likely when he goes to make deals with them that it goes in Trump's favor. So, you know.
And if you question that, like how many Americans have been killed on American soil by Iran as compared to the number, I don't know, killed by Mexico, which brings all our fentanyl in, not Venezuela, Mexico.
This is beyond a movie. This is prophecy. This is code. This is quantum code. We are watching the execution of a program. This is literally what the Bible and all the other holy books talk about. We are right in the end times, and what a time to be alive, my friend. What a blessing to be at this stage in human history, to be able to watch such prophetic times actually play out and to see the revival that is happening around the world, not just with Christians, but with spiritual people too. It's wonderful.
You get attacked as an agent of the mullahs. And the way to think about this is, who cares? Your priorities are every bit as important as Mark Levin's because you are a co-equal with Mark Levin because you're also an American citizen. He gets one vote, you get one vote. That's our system. So Mark Levin can scream at you all he wants and tell you must really care about affecting regime change in Iran. It is absolutely okay. In fact, it's your duty to say to Mark Levin, I don't really care. I can't afford my health insurance. Our leaders should solve that problem. And you'll be joined in that by like 150 million other Americans who agree with you, who can't find Iran on a map. They're not pro-Iran. They're not Shiite Muslims. But they have real problems and they want a hearing for those problems. They want someone else to care about those problems. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because people like Levin and Ben Shapiro, who at one point had this like media empire.
Ben Shapiro's a has-been prick. A tiny prick. I can't stand Ben Shapiro. He talks about everyone like they are. He talks down to everyone all the time like they are just goys. Ignorant little goys. You know?
Daily Wire with some good people on it. You know, it's fine. It's fine. But Ben Shapiro spent, I don't know, a decade posing as someone who actually cared about your concerns as an American. He did it imperfectly. There were flashes that he didn't really care. But he's like, no, I'm a conservative. I'm a conservative. I'm not just interested in the fortunes of one tiny country in the Middle East with a population of 9 million. No, I have a lot of interests. I really care about this country, and I'm against the trans movement or whatever. But increasingly, as everyone's gotten more hysterical and prone to sort of blurting out the truth, that veil has dropped, and you can see what Ben Shapiro really, really cares about. So this is a very revealing exchange that took place.
Good night, Justin, and thank you for the well wishes. Same to you. I hope you sleep very well, okay?
6 days ago, last Thursday, on stage with Megyn Kelly. Ben Shapiro was just sitting there being interviewed by Megyn Kelly and he said something like, well, Tucker Carlson's, for Maduro. Maduro,
Ah,
the communist
here-
leader
here
of
we go.
Venezuela, who I guess were on the way to killing or something, forcing out, regime changing him. And he defended Maduro. Didn't, actually. And Megyn Kelly says, well, Tucker said in his show that Maduro, most people didn't know this, whatever his many faults, I wouldn't hire him as an economist, okay? But whatever his many faults, has the most socially conservative country probably in the hemisphere. So Venezuela is just a fact. I mean, I didn't make this up. I'm not in charge of Venezuela. Just noticing that Venezuela has banned pornography, banned abortion, banned gay marriage, banned sex changes, and banned usury.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have credit cards with 40% interest in Venezuela. Okay. Ben Shapiro responded this way.
Tucker's made the point. I'm not going to here to be Tucker's defender, but he's made the point that Maduro is culturally conservative.
Who gives a shit? The guy's a communist dictator. Everyone is.
I mean, I agree with Ben Shapiro's sentiment right there. Like, who gives a shit? He's a communist dictator. Like, yeah.
Country's eating dog. He's shipping fentanyl to the United States to kill Americans. Why do I give a shit whether he's anti-LGBTQ rights?
Who gives a shit?
Oh,
I do.
Tucker's feelings are hurt.
I do. I'm not moving to Venezuela. I'm not pro Maduro. But I care about that. Why wouldn't I care about that? I've got kids. Like, first of all, I'm against abortion. Sorry, unpopular. I feel that way. I think it's really sad. I would personally become poorer to end abortion, voluntarily become poorer to end abortion in the United States. That's not a choice. Don't want to become poor, but I would because I care about it. Maybe you.
Oh, yeah. But my audience is not sheep. However, I do explain things in the layman way. We're on episode 33. So the episodes just kind of like keep going. So if there's a lot of stuff people can go back and listen to. But yeah, my show attracts very well-versed people. So we get really deep, you know.
You don't. Maybe you're offended that I do, but I care about it. Lots of people care about it. I don't think pornography is good. That really hurts people. You know, I don't think pretending that the sexes are the same is good. And you claimed that you didn't think it was good, but it turns out, quote, I don't give a shit. Maduro's against Israel. Oh, okay.
Now we got
I
it.
don't give a shit. Well, you spent like a decade pretending you did give a shit, that you were on the side of like normal Americans who have a
Right.
mix of concerns. They definitely care about economics and they care about social issues too because they have children and they see where this is going. It's not good. That your economic condition is not the only measure of health. Your spiritual condition matters too. It's just a fact. It does. If you're totally degraded, it doesn't matter how much money you have. It's not worth it. It's not worth getting the whole world and losing your soul. Sorry. And most people feel that way, but not Ben Shapiro. He doesn't give a shit. So why the hostility? Well, maybe because if you keep talking about the so-called social issues, which are not limited to abortion and pornography and gay marriage, the trans issue, they get pretty quickly to economics, to usury, to lending money and interest. And most people, including me, are not against lending money and interest, conceptually. But it depends on what interest rate it's being loaned at. So there are payday loans in this country that are 600% annually.
Mm-hmm.
600% interest annually? And who's taking payday loans in this country? Well, poor people are.
Right.
And they're never getting out of it. They're car loans. They're credit card loans. There's private credit. We used to call it loan sharking. At exorbitant rates. Rates so high that people will never get out from under them. They're enslaved by it. It's called debt slavery. It's 100% real. It's not an ideological point. It's just an obvious observation. And it was one of the observations that Charlie...
No, you didn't come across wrong, Devil 89. I was just kind of giving you some context on why sometimes I may not like explain a deeper concept just because of maybe a lack of time. And I just don't really worry about it too much because I've realized that my audience is like super well educated, which is such a compliment to me because I definitely don't feel like, you know, I'm like anything special, but it's definitely cool to be in company like yours where they know that, you know, not everybody listening is as far along as we are. So to have some of you guys in the chat that can sit and explain it to the people that are still in their infancy of waking up is great. But I was just kind of giving you a little like, context of what the crowd's like in the chat.
Kirk was making on a daily basis before he was assassinated, which is interesting. And it's that kids are buying food on credit. Buy now, pay later. That's credit. You're paying interest on that, whether they call it
Thank
that or
you,
not.
Danny.
Late fees. People are loaning you money at a much higher interest rate than, say, rich people are borrowing money. And that's bad because it's really hard to get out of it. And if you're wondering why the average American home buyer, American-born home buyer, is almost 40 years old when the year I graduated from college,
taking
it
out
was
a
28.
50-year
How did that
loan.
happen? People are in too much debt.
Yep.
This is probably, if it had to isolate it in a world with a lot of issues, a lot of pressing issues, debt for young people is probably the number one issue, which is to say, it's the number one thing that is destroying them and making.
That's why Gen Z has become nihilists. They want to be homeless. They love shopping at thrift stores, which I'm not going to knock because I think being frugal is a wonderful quality. My house is beautiful and everyone thinks I spent all this money on the things that are in it, but I didn't. I got a good deal, if not made it myself.
It's impossible for them to get married and have children, which Ben Shapiro told us he cared about. And that's the conversation that they absolutely don't want to have.
No,
So
Devil, you're
well,
good.
Maduro, whatever his many faults, probably stole the election. Looks that way to me. I don't know, but it looks that way. People say he's bad. I'm okay. I believe you. He's bad.
I know that they're looking to get rid of property tax. I don't know if that's just here in Florida or if that's a federal thing they're looking at doing, but I did see it go by somewhere in the zeitgeist the last couple weeks.
But he doesn't have that, and that's a good thing. And Ben Shapiro's like, I don't give a shit. Shut up. He's a communist. It makes you wonder how we're defining communist here. Because, of course, in the United States, communist no longer means someone who believes Marx and Engels. It has nothing to do with academic theory. That's all gone.
That right.
Communist in the United States is a synonym for someone who seeks to rot a society from within and destroy it.
I like that explanation.
And I guess I would argue that if you don't give a shit about pornography or 63 million abortions in the United States and since Roe v. Wade or whatever.
I think he does care about those things, Tucker. I think the point that he's making is that you only listed out what it was that you liked about him. And there's going to be things about every leader that are good and bad. So I think that's probably more of Ben's point. And I don't even like Ben Shapiro. So there's that. I can't stand him.
And if you don't care about 600% annual interest rates on payday loans,
the one thing that they want to take away is your ability to own property, because that is land is the only thing you can't make more of. If you do not own land, you don't have any real wealth that is completely secured to you. You can't make more, like cars, houses. There's all kinds of tricks. Those can be stolen from you. Even land, there's like title deed theft and everything. But my point is more in terms of the availability of the product. So land is like what my family's wealth is in. And, that's where the big games are played, is in land.
being given to the poor. Who's the communist exactly? Who's trying to rot this country from the inside? Who doesn't care about the destruction of human beings in our country? It's not me. You're a communist. So I thought a lot about this. I didn't want, you never want to extrapolate too much from a single
Hi,
clip.
Kelly.
You don't wanna be cruel to
Welcome.
people. You don't want to be
Welcome,
unfair.
Estelle.
Having been unfair many times, it weighs on me. Don't want to do that. So
I love
I looked around. Is
F-22s.
this consistent with Ben Shapiro's worldview? Does he think GDP, the aggregate economic activity in a country, the bottom line number, which really doesn't tell you that much, but for simple people like Ben, who aren't sophisticated in their understanding of economics, that's important. GDP, GDP, GDP. never hinting at the things that it doesn't measure, never hinting at what a distorted number that is, just like the inflation rate or the employment rate. I mean, these are not really real numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But is he really a guy who cares about
By the way,
GDP or economic activity?
I'm taking classes in finance because your girl's about to be in the finance industry, because I really wanted to know what the fuck is going on. And I figured the best way is to become a finance professional. So your girl right now is in school yet again. Like my other, my degree and my other 2 certifications aren't enough.
Or some people getting rich more than he cares about the lives of his fellow Americans. Boy, that's a pretty heavy charge. You'd hate to level that against anyone. You'd hate to claim that about anyone. Could this be a guy who really only cares about a foreign country? So we went looking. So first, and famously, don't even put it on the screen because I'm sure you've seen this, there was Ben Shapiro saying, you know, I'd be willing to vote for Bibi Netanyahu for president of the United States if only it were constitutionally allowed.
About 2 years ago, I learned about every single U.S. military aviation craft in 3 hours, watched every video. And yeah, I love helicopters specifically. The Chinook's really cool, all the things that it can do. When I was going into the military, that was my second choice, was to be a Chinook mechanic. But I was going in to be a human intelligence collector. And I pulled out of the contract like right at the very end. Kind of regret it, but seeing as to what's really going on in the world and how Israel actually controls everything, I'm glad I didn't join the military, because I would have been right over there in the Middle East. I mean, look at me. They were going to have me learn Farsi and Arabic.
Huh? You want some foreigner to run our country? Who even thinks like that? He said that. Maybe it was just
I used to live 25 minutes away from Langley Air Force Base.
Getting carried away. He just loves Bibi so much. Loves the guy who is killing tens of thousands of children in Gaza so much that he wants him to run our country. Okay. But then we found a couple of other clips, which are recent, that give a window, not just, and I hate to be mean to poor Ben Shapiro, who's clearly going away as a media force. I hate to be mean to him. But this does reflect the worldview of an awful lot of people in Washington and a lot of people in Ben Shapiro's world. And that worldview is the people of this country don't really matter. They can be replaced. And by the way, if you complain about the fact they're being replaced, which they are,
oh my gosh,
it's measurable.
Jack,
then you're a Nazi.
The compliment is too high. I speak angel. I wonder what angel would sound like. In my imagination, that sounds like something I'd hear over like a digital frequency. The F-15X, yes. Oh yeah.
And you must shut up and be punished. But those people,
I just have to say,
really
American
matter.
aircraft is just sexy
they should do
too.
what they're told, and ultimately they should just serve the people who are for profiting from all of this. Does he really think that? Well, here are a couple of clips that you can watch carefully and answer the question for yourself. Here's Ben Shapiro.
We have trained an entire generation of people to believe that if their lives are not what they want them to be, it's the fault of systems,
Aw, y'all are
as
so
opposed to
sweet.
decisions that are in their own
Don't make
control.
me blush.
And politicians absolutely have a stake in selling that. A lot of people in our industry have a stake in selling that. It makes people feel good about themselves and bad about the world. And the reality is, if you want a better life, you should feel better about the world and worse about yourself. If you're a young person and you can't afford to live here, then maybe you should not live here. I mean, that is a real thing. Yeah, I know that we've now grown up in a society that says that you deserve to live where you grew up. But the reality is that the history of America is almost literally the opposite of that.
It's hard to know where to start.
Saudi Arabia, we haven't had problems with the Saudis. In fact, Trump's actually pretty good. He's been pretty good friends with the prince like for a long time. So I think, why did they buy all the F-22s? I think, that was just a bit of a circle jerk there, just making each other feel like big boys, doing Trump a favor, like help me out, look like a big boy here. They're buddies. But the Saudis, we haven't had issues with the Saudis, I don't think. They didn't particularly like Biden and Obama, but, they love Trump. So they're like happy to play ball with us. And it helped us pay down some bills,
With that clip, I think that's been on the internet and people are experiencing gut level revulsion when they see it, and they really should. And there's so many ways to approach that. There's so many things wrong with those statements. So childish, those statements, so lacking.
The Saudis respect the alphaness of Trump. Biden did not exhibit that. And they could see through Obama. Obama was a snake oil salesman. You know, he had that silver tongue. He tickled your ears, but he was a backstabber, and the Saudis did not respect Obama like that. They respect Trump because Trump is good for his word, and he doesn't take any shit, and they respect that.
An understanding of people.
Also, the Saudis are very lavish people, and they love that Trump is all about the luxury. So there's that as well.
To the country at
The
all.
finer things, so they think he has good taste.
But really what you see underneath all of that is contempt for the people who live here. You have no right to live in the town where you were born just because your parents are buried there. Your ancestors built the town. Who do
Right,
you
Ben
think you
Shapiro's
are?
dumbass saying that shit.
Imagine
He's a
feeling that
fucktard.
way
I hate
about
him.
someone in your own country. Imagine having that level
I'm going to be buried right next to my grandfather on our land, so he can suck it.
of contempt for a fellow American. You don't even know anything about the person. It's young people. They're not entitled to live where they want. They'll live where BlackRock tells them they can live. It's like, whoa.
Yep.
If you had a thought like that, I've had some ugly
Fucking
thoughts. I just admitted
BlackRock,
having
man.
some
They
ugly
own
thoughts.
everything.
Boy, I would try and push it back and not express it. Ben says it without any embarrassment
Barry.
because he means it.
Barry.
That's exactly
Barry.
right, because he means it. Whew. I don't think that you can win a popular debate with that attitude, because irrespective of the content of your sentence, people can feel the loathing that the speaker has for them. Ben Shapiro just does not care about you at all.
Nope.
Is not even
He's going to go on more about Ben Shapiro, so I'm going to skip it and get to this part with the girl from the Young Turks. Now, I've never, excuse me, never really supported the Young Turks, and I never was particularly like supportive of the girl from the Young Turks, the blonde. But I really, she won me over last night with everything she had to say, and I feel like I have a better understanding of her and her position now. So we're going to just jump to that because we are approaching soon the 2-hour mark. Okay, here we go. So
mind. I'm just very happy to introduce her now. Anna, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Tucker. I appreciate it.
I'm worried about where this is going. I'm worried about all the Nazi talk, not just because it's directed at me and you, but because once you start talking like that, it's kind of hard to walk it back, and it's kind of hard to disapprove of violence when the people
I'm going to let the video speak for itself.
you're calling Hitler get killed. Like, how could you be...
She's American. She's Turkish descent, I think, or Armenian descent, excuse me. She's very much American, sees herself as American, and is very, very staunchly America first, like I am. So she is very similar to me, in the fact that on my mother's side, I'm a first generation American. On my dad's side, I'm a fifth. But on my mother's side, I'm a first. So I have a very similar perspective as her with what I have watched happen to America since I was born in 1985.
Sad when Hitler dies. So where are we going, and how do we stop the introduction of like Nazi, Hitler, fascist into our conversation? We need to pull back on that, I think.
Well, you're
Yes, Mike, my favorite gun by the Turks is the Tokarev. It's actually American designed, but made in Turkey. See my little Tokarev sign right here? Right here. I have a bullpup, and it is my favorite rifle, my 12 gauge Tokarev bullpup, which is a really nice gun because you configure it to be right or left shooter, so the shells eject away from your face. I have a grip on the front of mine, the end of the barrel. I've got a holographic sight and a laser and a strobe, and there was absolutely no break-in period with this gun. I mean, I clean swept the clay pigeons in the first use after setting my bullpup up. And I'm telling you, the bullpup is as long as my arm is, and it is amazingly tactical for a home defense, for getting around corners in your house easily. You don't have that long barrel like most shotguns have. It's great for the cab of your truck or in your car. I have mine set up with two 10-round magazines. One's got buckshot and the other one's got slugs. So, that way the buckshot for if I have just a crowd swarming my car, or the slugs if I'm dealing with, maybe a heavier threat, more targeted.
Right about that. There's no question. And I think
there's
you're
a
also
video on my profile of me taking the first shots with my bullpup. So you'll see it. I'm holding the rifle standing on our 40-acre property.
about is the fact that these words are specifically being used in a way to intimidate people and persuade them to avoid speaking out against what they find to be a huge problem in our country's priorities right now. And what I would like to say to anyone who's been smeared as an anti-Semite when they don't have any hatred in their hearts at all for the Jewish people is don't let them win when they do that to you. Because you know in your heart you're not an anti-Semite. You know in your heart that you're not a Nazi. The people closest to you in your life know that. And so you as an American have every right in the world to be critical of the fact that regardless of which presidential administration we're talking about, our priorities are messed up. And there isn't enough focus on all the various aspects of American society that are completely falling apart right now as we speak. There's been political violence in this country. I'm going to put my cards on the table and say, I've been guilty of using inflammatory rhetoric, certainly. But I think what you're saying here is important, especially as it pertains to how.
Marty said he saw that video, or oh no, Mike said he saw it. The only reason why I don't do any photo shoots with my weapons is because I don't want everyone to know what I have in my arsenal.
How Americans communicate with one another about these incredibly controversial issues. I get that people get passionate, but you have to understand the motivations of the person who's trying to smear you, number one. Number two, if you are met with this type of rhetoric from a fellow American, you're so right. Do not become what you claim to hate. Don't become hateful yourself. I allowed that to happen to me to some extent during Trump's first term. I have a lot of remorse about that because I think there are a lot of really great people in this country. They voted for Trump. Turns out I don't care. It doesn't matter who they voted for. It doesn't say anything about who they are as people. And more importantly, they're my fellow Americans who have participated in what makes this country great, which is our ability to voice our support and cast our ballot for who.
Mike says, Luna, do you think all these actors are being put in place to wake Americans up? Loaded question. I definitely think that there are white hats within government, within Hollywood, that are staying in the snake pit to keep looking out for people and doing their duty as people on the inside to keep the truth coming out. Now, also on the inverse, what I think is also going on is that God allows, or orchestrates what we feel are bad, horrible things that end up, or bad guys or bad actors that end up furthering the divine will stronger in the direction of what is to ascend higher or to become more light beings. And it's always the opposite force that pushes you into the opposite direction. So, when you have thrust pushing against, right? If this is the flames, the thrust pushing to my left, it's going to cause the object to move away from my right. So, if I apply, quantum physics, metaphysics all together and wrap that up into a nice pretty package, by default I would have to know that there are bad actors that are divinely placed, like Charlie's death, I think divinely had to happen because that's what martyrs do. They completely move an entire society towards something. So, towards the good. So, and it takes something that deeply emotional to get the masses to wake up to those levels. So, yeah, I think there's bad things that happen and occur that are, meant to happen, that need to happen. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's how I feel.
Who we feel is best to represent us. So I just think there's something kind of interesting happening in the country right now that gives me a little bit of optimism, gives me a little bit of hope. People are starting to see beyond partisanship and instead kind of understand, okay, wait a minute, we're all Americans. It feels like a lot of the framing around partisan divides is completely manufactured and in fact is utilized by members of the media to divide us and to distract us from the fact that our government is not focused on taking care of us. And so I just really want to drive that point home. Don't fall for the gross rhetoric. Don't partake in it. And try to see the humanity in everyone before you allow yourself to devolve into the very thing that you hate. Now, I will say it's really hard for me to practice that when it comes to members of the IDF and Netanyahu in particular. But I think your message is the correct message.
So I saw this. I've been brooding about this for the last couple of days because I am worried that the violence will accelerate. And I've been in countries where this happens. It gets to a certain point, and your cousin gets killed, and at that point, you can't think clearly, and you get swept up in it. That is a very familiar cycle to anyone who's seen it. So the only way to stop that is by controlling our own behavior and by being honest about it. And as I was thinking about this, I saw that you apologized to someone publicly for something that you had said about him, and it was weird that we were having the same thoughts at the same time. But can you explain that?
Sure. So about 5 years ago, Aaron Mate, who is a journalist and is actually doing a lot of really great work, especially in his coverage of what's happening in Gaza, had reported some things that I disagreed with in regard to what was happening in Syria, right? So he didn't deny that Bashar al-Assad had in some instances used chemical weapons, but there was one particular instance that he was denying, and I disagreed with him on that. Who's right, who's wrong, that doesn't even matter at this point. I don't even know why I allowed that one minor disagreement to basically whip me up into this crazy frenzy and this
been there, baby.
Right?
Yes.
Where all of a sudden I'm like, no, Aaron Mate definitely, he's getting funded by the Russians. Definitely getting funded by the Russians. And so on TYT one day, Cenk and I were discussing Syria, and I just blurted that out. And I was in a different headspace at that time. I'd like to think that I've matured a little bit since then. And I just kept doubling down. I wouldn't apologize. There were some circumstantial things that I would point to, but really nothing solid to prove that Aaron Mate is funded by the Russians. And so over the last year in particular, I just kept seeing his posts on X. I actually was on a panel with him on Piers Morgan's show, and he and I were very much on the same page in regard to the topic we were discussing. And every single time he would come up in my mind,
John,
I
that's
felt
accurate.
really bad about myself.
What you last said.
I smeared him, and I never apologized, and that's not okay. And so I came across another one of his posts today that I liked on X, and I was like, you know what? Now is the time. It's been 5 years. It's embarrassing that it's been 5 years. Now is the time for me to practice what I preach, to lead by example and apologize to him unequivocally. And I was met with grace.
So this is the first moment where I perked up and I'm like, okay, now she's getting my attention, because anybody that can admit that they're wrong on something is like, okay, that's a human I'm dealing with. And this is somebody where we can actually probably come to a middle ground on.
He was very, very kind, and he accepted my apology, and I'm very grateful for that. But there's another point I want to just quickly make about this. If you are in the media, understand, like, we are all flawed, and you're right, Tucker, we all do change, some for the better, some for the worst. it is okay to admit when you're wrong. It is okay to apologize. It doesn't make you, I don't know, a less credible person if you admit you were wrong. And so just something to keep in mind if you happen to be in the media and you've made a mistake, or you've accidentally smeared someone, or you intentionally smeared someone and then realized it was wrong, just apologize and move on.
I just think that's such a beautiful story that you just told, and really at the heart of everything I care about. And I'm wondering, why do you think you're because we talk for a living, you've talked for a living for 20 years, something like that. That's every day, always talking on camera. But this followed you for 5 years. I just think it's so interesting that it kept coming back to you. Why do you think that is? And how did you feel after you said that in public today?
At first, I felt scared after I said that in public because, sometimes you're met with people who, even though they're not the ones who got smeared, they're not the ones receiving the apology, they won't accept it and they just keep doubling down on how you're a terrible person. And that's fine. That's fair. But to my surprise, a lot of people were really happy to see that because it's so rare these days, especially on social media. And look, especially over the last, I would say 3.5 years, I've just personally realized something, which was, okay, what is my identity? Like, am I just Armenian? Right? And I love my Armenian heritage. Absolutely love it. But I was born and raised in America, and I love this country. And if you do love this country, engaging in divisive garbage that just tears this country apart, that makes Americans turn on one another, is really not the way to go. And so I just made a decision at some point that I'm not going to engage in that. And the only time that I will allow myself a little more freedom in my rhetoric is when I'm referring to a foreign country that is harming us. Okay.
Yes.
Boom.
So,
and
in
there's
the case of
my
the United
issue
States, in the case of
with Israel. I have more of an issue with them because they're our allies, and this is what they've been doing, interfering with our politics on the deepest levels, interfering with our medical system, interfering with our educational system on the deepest levels. And you're supposed to be our allies. And all you've been doing is a massive psychological operation to create a bunch of little slave minions out of us Americans for you.
my fellow Americans,
The piggy
in
bank.
the case of people I disagree with politically, let's have that conversation. It's okay if it gets fiery.
It's okay, Mike.
I'm
Enjoy
known to get
yourself.
very passionate,
That's what my show's for.
But I hope that the message I'm sending is that, again, I see the humanity in the person I'm disagreeing with first and foremost.
There you go.
And that once the debate is over, there's no engaging in the dehumanizing, disgusting rhetoric that Mark Levin honestly has been spewing for many, many years. And now it's being directed toward you because you had the audacity to criticize the foreign country that he seems to care far more about than our own.
Yep.
That's the
And
way
there
I
you
see
have
it.
it.
And I knew this was going to happen, Tucker. They were waiting.
Being America first, if you're America first and it hasn't occurred to you yet that it means America first before Israel, then we're going to have a problem here in the next few years, because that's what's happening to the MAGA base right now. It's fracturing between the people who are choosing Israel and the people who are choosing America. And being MAGA is not partisan. See, they've made this a conservative thing. Being America first is not partisan. It shouldn't matter if you're a Democrat and I'm a constitutionalist. It shouldn't matter if you're a Republican and I'm a constitutionalist, or you're a libertarian and I'm a constitutionalist. We should all be America first. And if we're all thinking that way, then we all bring to the table our strengths instead of constantly meeting each other with our weaknesses.
For something to pin on you outside of your evidence-based critique of what's happening in this U.S.-Israel alliance. And in fact, I had a conversation about this with someone close to me. So someone told me, look, everything that you've been saying about what's happening in Gaza and what Israel's been up to is backed up by evidence, right? So they can't really come after you for that.
I don't think Nick is a racist. I think Nick is calling out things culturally that he needs to call out, especially me being half black. Well, I'm actually triracial. My mom is half black, half Asian. So there's that. And then the rest of me is white. He's not wrong when he says we need to close the borders. Why do we need to close the borders? It's not because we're xenophobic, but because we need to rebond as a culture, as Americans. Stop the flow of constantly introducing nuance into our way of thinking. We have to close the borders so we can start developing traditions and customs that are now in sync with each other. We cannot have newness constantly being dumped onto our streets and expect us to bond. We have to do that. Nick, when he makes his comments about why am I lock my doors in a black city, because you should, because the crime rate is up. And the fact that a white person isn't allowed to call that out is a problem. I want him to call out. And this is the frustration of like us mixed kids. It's like, we're so sick of like the identity politics. We need to be able to talk about the truths that exist within the subcultures, because they exist within subcultures because they've taught blacks to continuously segregate themselves. And so the crime on each other is going to be exponentially higher. Every subculture that comes in here keeps segregated, and that's not what America's about. We are about integration.
But what they will do is find you in a moment of weakness where you make a mistake, and they'll destroy you. So be careful.
John, that you're not wrong. However, we got to look at it. We're thinking about it as normal people under normal conditions. What do we do under abnormal conditions where the pressure from the left is so intense? Well, you need to match that force of pressure. Otherwise, you'll never bring it back to center. So if we need to speak extreme to get their attention and to bring reality back into it, then we need to do that. So it's like negotiations. You never go in, if you're trying to sell, you never go in at your bottom dollar. You go in at your highest dollar. If you're a purchaser, you never go in telling them the most you're willing to spend. You go in telling them the least you're willing to spend. So it's like the same concept. So if they're going to be so extremist on the left, well, I'm going to have to introduce a very extreme bill that they're going to obviously reject on the counter opposite, to then start the negotiation and back and forth juggling to wiggle it to center.
Because they're watching.
That's correct.
Well, that moment never happened, or hasn't happened yet. But what I have noticed is they can just take you out of context, which has happened.
Yeah.
And as a result, I was
think
met with
people don't
violence
know
in
how
my
to
own
say
neighborhood
anything
by someone
anymore.
who is absolutely convinced that I'm a Jew hater, which of course I'm not. So that's the kind of situation we're dealing with right now. And it's scary, but the
best thing anybody can do is just be exactly what they are. If you want to be a racist, that's fine. You're allowed to be a racist. Be one openly so the rest of us can know where we stand with you. That's kind of how I feel about it. So it's like, if we're in a situation where it doesn't matter what we say, people are going to label it however they want us to be viewed, then just speak your truth. Let society and let each other hold each other accountable. Let each other shake it out. The government does not need to shake out these issues for us.
The only thing you can do is really control your own behavior. You can't control the behavior of others.
Thanks,
and
Mike.
I'm hoping that if we lead by example, we can get this country to a better place.
So let me just say,
Danny, you're getting into fun
as
stuff.
America's most dangerous anti-Semite. No one ever provides a single
That's crazy
example of me being anti-Semitic, because I'm not. And if I was, I guess I'd probably just say so.
It'd be provable.
Say my views as plainly as I can, and I abhor anti-Semitism. I've always thought that. I've always said that. So it's a lie. But I'm interested. I'm not afraid at all. However, I understand that this is an incitement to violence. It clearly is. It's intentional. They approve of violence. They love what's happening.
That's why, John, the only
They
rhetoric we
love
need to start making powerful is America first discussions. Fuck the Islamic bullshit. Fuck the Jewish bullshit. This is America. I'm a spiritualist, but I understand that our country being founded on Christian belief systems already makes me born on third base when it comes to safety. I adore the fact that me being born in America makes me ahead of the game in terms of the safety my culture and my law and government provides, because it's founded upon Christian principles. Look at the other countries that are not founded upon those Christian principles. They're not as safe to be in. So I have to fight for that. You know what I mean? I have to fight for protecting tradition in America.
Violence. They don't consider their opponents fully human. So tell me what happened. You said that these slanders provoked violence against you?
Yes, yes. So there are these weird, dark, shadowy organizations. We don't know how they're funded. Some of them we don't even know who's behind them. But one of them is Canary Mission. There's another group called Stop Anti-Semitism. I think there's more information about who's behind that group. And then there's another group called Jews in School. And so these groups realized that they can't get me fired from my job, right? Cenk Uygur is not going to fire me because of my critique of Israel. So
Danny, I've been saying for a long time that the thing that's going to cure humans to bond together globally is the presence of aliens.
Instead decided to start attacking my husband, and they're trying to get him fired from his job, even though this is like the most apolitical guy. When I met him, I'm like, oh, are you into news and politics? He's like, no. I'm like, oh, what are you into? Sports. that was it. I'm like, you're perfect for me.
Good husband. I agree. It's
right,
good.
Right. And they've been relentless in taking me out of context. And sure enough, one morning as I was walking my dog, a woman who I've actually seen in the neighborhood before, we had never spoken to each other, but we've passed by one another without incident. She's standing in the middle of the sidewalk, just kind of blocking it, and her dog is going nuts. And she's looking at me with this weird, menacing look on her face. And I'm really not thinking much of it. I'm thinking, oh, that face is probably because of the fact that her dog is losing its mind. She's probably trying to train the dog. No big deal. I literally try to get around her because she's blocking the sidewalk, and I walk into the street. And as I'm doing that, she starts approaching me with her dog, like basically sicking her dog at me and my dog, which is like a little 20-pound dog, mine is. And at that point, I take my headphones out. I'm listening to music. I'm like, hey, what are you doing? And she's like, you're a Jew hater.
Oh my God.
I'm like, oh my gosh, she's actually trying to hurt me with her dog. And at that point, I try to reason with her at first. I'm like, no, there's a misunderstanding. And she's like screaming at the top of her lungs. And to be honest with you, at that point, I was just like, okay, I'm critical of a foreign country that is currently killing tens of thousands of children. So let me ask you, how many children need to be slaughtered for you to be satisfied? And at that point, like, her dog's still going nuts. And I realized, okay, it's stupid for me to keep standing here. I'm going to get my dog to safety. And as I'm walking away from her, she utters, good luck to your husband dealing with you.
Ooh.
And I was like, my husband loves me. And her response to that is, that's why we're trying to get him fired.
Ooh.
Which told me that she's basically part of an organized group that's trying to destroy my life because I'm critical of Israel.
Yeah.
And so I
living
am
right
smart
in her
enough
neighborhood
to understand that it is stupid to conflate people like this with the entire Jewish population. I will never let these people win and turn me into an anti-Semite. Ever, ever, ever.
Amen. I
my
agree.
absolute best friend from high school. She's my sister. I love her. She's Jewish. I go to Passover Seder with her. And it's ridiculous to just go around smearing people. But here's what I will say. This type of behavior is exactly what leads to anti-Semitism.
Yes.
Because if people feel like they're being targeted like this, if people feel like there's a group of people that's trying to destroy their lives, their livelihoods, make sure that they end up out on the streets with nothing, I mean, what do you think that inspires in people's
That's
hearts?
what they did to me.
Anger,
They tried to
rage,
make me homeless
hatred.
when I was running for Congress.
Barry Weiss
tried to take my
just
house.
interviewed Senator John Fetterman and asked, like, oh, why do you think there's this rise in anti-Semitism? It's the social media platforms. It's the algorithms. How could they do this? No, Barry, we keep seeing children slaughtered. And guess what? Americans don't like that.
Right.
How about stop slaughtering the children? And this issue that you're, fired up about might actually calm down a little bit.
Right.
But they just don't get it because they think that Israel is entitled to doing what it's doing.
Yep.
And I disagree.
Yep. I
Yeah,
do
and
too,
I
baby
don't
girl.
think that
Me
I should be
too.
required to pay for it or denounced as a Nazi. But it's interesting,
Right.
and
If
very
you don't
distressing
want,
to
all
me,
you
since
could
it's
be
from a
doing is be someone like me who just doesn't want to pay for other people's wars, and you're called a Nazi. So it's either you fund it and be supportive, or you're a Nazi.
life on the right, whatever that is. I'm beginning to ask, what is that exactly? But I thought that one of the pillars of non-liberal thought, one of the main reasons Trump got elected last November,
I don't
was
know. It
because
just says large.
we on the right are opposed to censorship. And I sincerely am on the deepest level. Like, I would never submit to that under any circumstances, because I think it's the thing that separates the free from the enslaved. If you're free, you can't tell me what to think or say, period. And of course, it's the most American of all values. So I thought that was a sacrosanct principle, and that it would never be violated by anyone. We can disagree, but like, you could never try to prevent me from saying it. And I wake up, and maybe I just missed this. I didn't know this. All of a sudden, everybody I know, Barry Weiss and that creepy guy from the Babylon Bee, and all these people, it turns out like they spend all day thinking about how to prevent other people from talking and working to prevent other people from talking. Barry Weiss is at the top of that list. Here's a media executive, the head of CBS News, whose real interest is imposing censorship on the country on behalf of another country. I don't know, does that shock you, or maybe I'm just too naive? I did not see that coming at all.
Yeah, you're a little bit naive. So I did.
I think I am.
Because
I agree.
He actually
Because
can
the
be
truth
very
is,
naive on a
you
lot
know,
of things.
There are very few people who are sincere in wanting to protect free speech, because as soon as there is speech that offends their sensibilities, all of a sudden they're not in favor of protecting free speech. So protecting speech matters the most when you are hearing speech you dislike.
Yes.
Because you have to think about how wanting to censor people who are engaged in rhetoric you don't like is definitely going to come back around to you. And, as someone who has been on the left for most of my adult life, right, I remember thinking to myself, for all the people on the left who are like hell-bent on engaging in censorship, do you guys understand history? Do you know how this is going to work out for you if you keep engaging like this? And so I just think that what's particularly gross about what's happening in this current moment is that the censorship has to do with speech that is critical of a foreign country.
That's right.
And that's unacceptable. Okay, it's unacceptable. We are able to be as critical as we want of our own government, which should also be protected, obviously. But the idea that, the other thing I want to just quickly say, I know this is a little bit of a tangent, but I have to get this out. Ahmed Ashara playing basketball with members of our military in the United States White House on U.S. soil, okay, a so-called former Al-Qaeda terrorist visiting New York City for the UN General Assembly is such an insult to the American people. Unacceptable. So while you have the Mark Levins and people like him constantly defaming people as jihadists, Islamists, terrorists, hey, you got any word about Al-Shara cozying up to the Trump administration? Are we okay with that? Oh, he doesn't like Hezbollah. Okay, so I guess he's our ally because he doesn't like Hezbollah. It's just disgusting how much our government, again, regardless of which administration we're talking about, I mean, the Biden administration probably would have done the same thing, to be honest with you, right? And it's just sick to me that all of a sudden, actual terrorism, the terrorism that took out thousands of our own people and ended up dragging us into lengthy wars in the Middle East that killed more of our soldiers and tons of innocent civilians, by the way. That's okay. We're just going to forget about that. We're going to wipe the slate clean because this Al-Qaeda terrorist doesn't like Hezbollah and is good for Israel. It's insane. It's absolutely insane.
Well, and the irony
I
is,
really want to get that out.
The irony, no, and I'm so glad you said that. I mean, it raises a lot of questions.
That's basically the gist of the episode. You can see the rest of it, you can see the rest of it for yourself on his YouTube. But Yeah, that's the theme for the night. It's like, how can you be America first and not be accused of being an anti-Semite? The key is you speak the truth and you don't stop. You just don't. You make it clear that you have love for people as humans. Just because you don't agree with their ideology doesn't mean you can't see the humanity in them, but we can't let them come down on us with this force of like gaslighting us into believing we're evil because we want to put America first. We are not responsible for what our ancestors have done. We are not responsible for what mommy, grandmommy, or great grandmommy has done. It's America first, period. And anything that they do to try to get you to stop that, do it harder. The more they try to censor you, we have to stick up for what's right. Just because you put America first does not make you a xenophobic bigot. And we all just got to keep talking about it. Keep spreading that energy. Make it infectious. And the key that makes it infectious is, why should I believe in America first? What's it going to give me back? And it's the love thy neighbor as thyself. It's putting into each other, to be there for each other, to support each other in times of need, regardless of what side of the aisle we're on. We are Americans at the end of the day. We're Americans first. If you are illegal, get the fuck out. If you're a foreign entity and you want to interfere with our politics, get the fuck out. But yeah, so, we're cleaning our house first. Once our house is in a good feng shui and in homeostasis, if you foreign country come knocking on our door needing help, that's a different story. But right now, we got to put ourselves on life support and put our own oxygen mask on first. But yes, it's been a good one. It's been a long one. Y'all stuck with me. Stay deep with me. Man, I get on other accounts, pages that are hundreds of thousands more followers than me, and they do not have as big of numbers on their lives as I do. So I love all of you so much, and I appreciate all of you. And I will see all of you guys either tomorrow or the next day. I'm probably going to start doing these every other day. But I don't know. I still have fun doing it, and I end up on here more often than every other day. I keep saying I'm going to do every other day. Thank you, Jack. I appreciate you. Brady, thank you. The color of my shadow. So this is a green chameleon with gold. So like as I move, it turns green and gold. I can send you the brand in a DM if you message me. Good night, Danny. You're awesome too. Good night, John. Good night, Mike, Jack. The People's Forge. All right. Love you all. Very good. Welcome, Brady. I do post my lives the next day, or always within 1 or 2 days, so you can check out the lives before you'll see the thumbnail on my profile grid. But I hope you guys all have a very blessed night. Say your prayers and hug who you love. You never know. We only have right now. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. I love all of you. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Good night.